Hi Frazer, welcome here to the Valilla studio today.
Thank you for the invite.
Before we dive into your journey, which made you come here to Finland, can you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a British national, lived in Finland for 6 years now. I've had a bit of a nomadic experience over the years, having lived abroad in multiple countries. I'm originally from the northeast of the UK. And I've got a lot of experience working in international HR, global mobility reward.
You moved to Finland 6 years ago.
Yes.
This was obviously during the COVID period.
Yes.
How was that to experience kind of like that shock in a country which was also to some extent, I believe, new for you?
Yeah, it was. I say luckily, my wife is Finnish. I had a bit of a head start, so I'd been to and from Finland for tourist purposes and visiting family over the years. I think looking back, we had a very young family. The pandemic was just kicking off, so it was quite an experience moving here with a young family. Luckily, we had a foundation with my wife's family, but I think the irony is that when we moved here, you know, all of the messages you saw on the news in the UK in particular, the government announcements were around providing space. And I think obviously one of the Finnish, cultural, I suppose it's almost an anomaly at the time. One of the jokes, the anecdotes was that the safety measures over here in Finland actually got people close together because 2 to 3 meters apart was little. 2 to 5 meters, yeah, it was actually a little too close. So that was a nice experience, of course.
You mentioned that you came to Finland already before you had kids.
Yes.
From the perspective of being a father of 2 kids,
yeah,
to the boyfriend, husband at the time with no kids. What did that change in your perspective on Finland?
Really good question. So, I mean, I think it's natural when you're visiting as a tourist that you see the areas and the dimensions of Finland through the eyes or through the lens of someone who wants to experience the good things. Yeah. It's a very different story, of course, when you integrate. And I think, more so understanding Finnish society. Being a father obviously has considerations for education. It's one of the primary reasons we moved here. I think living in a very small apartment in London at the start of the pandemic was quite an experience. Yeah. Moving here where there is a natural tendency to have more of an outdoor life was one of the reasons we considered the move. So, prior to having kids, prior to moving here on a permanent basis, a lot of my experiences were really drawn from, what you read and what you like to see about, Finnish society as a tourist.
Yeah. And which of those elements that you would like to see as a tourist still hold their value today, being a resident?
Brilliant question. And I think, to be fair, many of them do hold true. And I think the obvious one is just the outdoor recreation and the space. And particularly for well-being and education for children. It's almost, seen as a privilege in many countries, and they look at the opportunity that kids have here through the educational system, that holistic learning, that ability to go outside. Just walking here from the train station, I walked past a group of kids wearing their bright yellow vests. It's nice to see. That's the first one. And I think just the second one is accessibility to a lot of the social services, particularly the connection with the libraries over here. That may seem a bit of an outlier, but it's really promoted, I think, for families, and a lot of the services are encouraged through connections that you can generate within the library. And, however, in other groups as well. So a great example, I think, is I'm a football coach. And getting involved in sport through connections and through a network has been really insightful. And one of the things I hadn't realized until I moved here is just how important those connections are. If you want to engage, if you want to feel that you belong, and obviously I wouldn't express for anyone to have kids in order to do that, but the experience through nurturing children here, it opens those networks as well, and football has been one of them for my son.
Yeah. Jumping in that, so you're coaching a junior league football team?
Yes.
I assume that takes a bit of time?
It does.
How do you balance that with a career?
I think the voluntary participation is encouraged a lot. I think in Finland, a lot of the clubs and societies only truly exist through parental contributions or volunteer mindset. And there's no kind of formula for it. It's something that is almost innate, and you can get involved to the extent that you feel is necessary. Yeah. As a voluntary coach, I obviously have a personal connection to the club through my son, but I also believe in what the club are doing to provide support for the local community. I wouldn't be able to invest as much time on that if I didn't take advantage of the famous work-life integration or work-life balance. You do see a lot of businesses allowing employees to integrate, their well-being components and welfare, whether it be family or on a personal need, around their working schedule.
Do you, outside work life, how active are you yourself? Because being a coach of a football team is one thing. How is that for you, that outdoors life you mentioned a couple of times? Yeah,
obviously with very, close here to Nuuksio National Park, everything is accessible. In the winter there are a number of, small ski resorts nearby, if we can call them resorts. But one thing that is clear is that the emphasis is very much on the kind of the physical component and the sports and well-being. And there's a lot to offer there. So we, as a family, we get out and about as much as possible and explore, particularly in the summer months.
Yeah. Do you recognize some of these social elements that you ascribe to Finland in the workplace?
I think, look, it's an interesting dilemma for a lot of multinationals, I think, who invest here. For those who are perhaps unfamiliar with the famous Finnish holiday time around the summer, it can be quite challenging. To be fair, in a lot of the Western world, biggest revenue months are June, July, August, depending on the industry sector and the cycles that you're in. And working for an international company, you just have to plan around that and ensure that your team members, your colleagues are as productive.
Now, you mentioned you've lived and been in various places around the world. How has it been to kind of come to Finland during that pandemic time, now out of the pandemic? You have young kids. How much of socializing outside work, football, are you doing?
Look, my wife and I pursued, opportunities at different stages in our careers and in our lives, and I think it's fair to say for most people, when you're young, free and single, or a couple, some of those decisions will, focus in other areas. We were in New York, for example. We had a few years over in the US. There's absolutely no way I could replicate what I have here right now in the US. But as I mentioned, one of the reasons for coming here was to pursue that, that pursuit of happiness, rather, just to look for something different and find a stable place for raising our children and also seeking the reward that we wanted in our careers as well.
So to that extent, if you reflect on that element of balance in this stage of life, how do you interpret this everlasting reflection on Finland being the happy place? Has it been, is it, or will it become your happy place?
There's a lot to be said about that, but I think it's a false fulfilling prophecy for people to just read that and assume I want that and I'll move to Finland. Yeah. You have to do your research because it's a very different set of experiences once you're inside. And I think, you have to be adaptive and understand that happiness sometimes can be referred to contentment. And I think sometimes a lot of if you read the index and the ratings, I believe that happiness is almost associated with just the acceptance of the rule of law with Finnish society, that the things work and people respect that. And there's also, for most of the population in Finland, generationally, I think the older population are perhaps happy that what they're seeing is based through their own set of experiences, where the younger population are perhaps pursuing something different in this notion of, reward and recognition and chasing that. My own experiences, I think, with happiness in Finland stem from what I referred to earlier. Seeing, obviously, the children happy and well integrated, being able to feel that, society there offers, opportunity for me and for my wife. And, just by being able to feel confident in our abilities. On the other hand, I think, and I mentioned being adaptive, it sometimes being able to just have that confidence to integrate in a way that others are perhaps more unfamiliar with. So, for example, I try to speak Finnish 6 years in and learning the language. It does have its challenges, but the same can be said of any country into which someone
any
moves.
language
Any
learning.
language, yeah. And, you know, I don't think people who perhaps refer to the inability to speak Finnish as a negative kind of consequence of their situation are perhaps on looking at the right thing. Yeah, I think you have to think more broadly about it and understand how you can help yourself as well. Yeah.
How have you find that language learning? As a process in itself.
As a process, and it's interesting because I would class myself as a linguist. I speak fluent French. I can get by in German. When it comes to Finnish, I've actually personally struggled. But a lot of the struggle is more around the confidence, I think, and just trying to break that barrier down.
And I can recognize that, because I spoke 6 languages fluent when I came here. I lost 3 of them while learning Finnish.
Okay.
My hard disk was full. But I also kind of started learning when I stopped learning.
Yes.
So I stopped going to the official language schools because it just didn't educate the language in a way that drove passion.
Yes. I tend to agree. Classroom learning has never been something that I've pursued. I like to learn on an independent or one-on-one basis. I feel like you generate more insight. But there's a lot of resources out there. I mean, I think Yle used to have, I don't know if they've continued,
The easy language.
the slow news, as I used to call it. You know, everyone hitasti, rauhassa, everyone. So you can, and there's also the foreign-speaking press as well. And there's been a lot of investment in that.
Yeah. Do you see yourself growing old here?
Do I see myself going old here? That's a very good question. Largely on the basis that I think as you establish a career, I've been here 6 years now, and as the kids get older, you also start thinking about, you know, what matters the most to you. You know, I don't have any siblings. I have aging parents in the UK. There's that kind of consideration. You know, 10, 15 years ago, I may be pursuing career development by looking for assignments abroad. I'm not necessarily looking for that right now. I'm looking, you know, for stability. I personally see Finland on a growth trajectory with a lot of investment and development over the last 5 to 10 years that will only continue growing. So do I see myself here long term? Yes. Do I see myself, you know, taking a pension here? That remains to be seen.
Depends on the weather, I guess.
It depends on the. Ask me in winter.
Yeah, exactly. Ask you in November.
Yes.
Now, if we are slowly kind of wrapping it up, what for you would be like the ideal marketing punch to promote Helsinki as a place to live, as a place to work, as a place to kind of find yourself? What would be the 3 words that would summarize it for you?
Reward, well-being, and happiness.
Reward,
/
well-being,
contentment.
So basically being content with whom you are, what you do. So there's an element of tranquility in that.
Tranquility is a good adjective, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Frazer.
Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.